What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Blerd It Out. We are on season 3. Yes, rejoice. New season, new visuals, new everything. We're going to try and re-ramp stuff like we do. You know how it is here. We also got the new chapter. 1120 is out, titled Atlas. And I gotta say, even coming off break and this not being a huge chapter, I immediately like this one better than the one before. I think this one was a lot more cohesive. It felt like the focus was there a bit more. At least to me, that's how I felt. So I enjoyed the chapter a lot more, but we're gonna get into that. As always, a word from the sponsors. Thank you for tuning in to Blerd It Out. Whether you're listening from YouTube on my channels like Taran King Kuma or Blerd It Out Podcast, or one of the many podcast sites like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more, I appreciate your support. If you want to listen to older episodes of the podcast, head on over to Patreon. If you join as a free member, you can watch all the old episodes from the old seasons for free. Plus, there'll be other content that didn't quite make it to an episode or on a YouTube video that you can check out there as well. Your support means the world. And if you have not caught up to the latest chapters or episodes, please know that there will be spoilers ahead.
Spoilers.
Okay, starting things off, 1120. We got Denjiro on the cover. So we actually captured all the little kids that were throwing stones at Yamato. And basically he's going to punish them with a timeout. Now, I don't think that's entirely necessary. I think these kids are just acting on what they know. They know that Kaido brought them and their parents, their family, their friends, a lot of pain. And so for the child of Kaido to just be walking around, I would be upset. And I mean, they're kids. They don't know any better anyway. So even if they really knew who Yamato was and what Yamato did, it would be hard for them to distinguish the difference between Yamato and Kaido's child. So I feel like, they don't really deserve the punishment. I would rather them just get like a stern talking to and then sent on their way. But I don't think it's going to go anywhere past this. So the chapter actually starts off with a flashback. We're in Punk Hazard, back when Vegapunk and Caesar were working together at Punk Hazard, both as government scientists. And it's cool because Punk Hazard looks a lot more lively right now. Obviously, it's not raged by poison and destruction and ice and magma, but it just looks like a lot cooler of a research facility. And we get to reveal that Clover's here. So Clover made it to Punk Hazard, which you would think that someone who is basically on the government watch list wouldn't be able to get here. But Vegapunk does explain that basically they're letting Clover move around as much as he does because they're trying to flesh out everybody. They want all of the scholars researching the Void Century, not just Clover. They know that there are more, so they're like, if we let you out, at some point you're gonna slip up. And I mean, to be fair, they do end up taking all of Ohara because they follow Clover there. So, but at this point, Clover is basically begging Vegapunk to share his research into the Void Century. Now, I don't know if it was revealed before, but this would indicate that Vegapunk was looking into the Void Century before he became affiliated with the world government. So basically, back when he was on his own island of Baltimore, I want to say, when he was on Baltimore, he was still doing research into the Void Century stuff, right? Because here he's saying, well, now I'm affiliated with the government, I can't talk about that kind of stuff. So he has knowledge and information on it, but at this point he can't talk about it. Whether or not the government knows, I'm not entirely sure. Just because the way he says it, it's like, it feels like he's trying to keep it under the rug, specifically because of the government. Now, if I know the way things normally work, I would imagine that the government already knows and they're just not saying anything about it. But either way, he's decided to not do any Void Century research at this time. And in one of the panels, so like you can see Vegapunk sitting next to a dragon, but in the panel that kind of shows like Punk Hazard's gate, you see another figure behind it. I'm wondering if that's like a bigger dragon because it has like the horns and everything back there, or if it's one of the, I'm not gonna say numbers, but something similar to a number. basically like a modified, like ancient animal being. I wonder if that's what that is. Or could it just be like a giant dragon? But continuing with the conversation with Clover, we have to reveal that he is a D. Now, I don't know how to say his first name, but we have to reveal that he, not only is he a D, but he had a older brother who was a D. And that brother essentially was killed by the government, and he lied that he was unaffiliated with him to move on, to live. And initially I can see the problem with this, because it's like, how do you as a D let someone kill your brother and then you kind of just cut ties with them? The thing I would say is that it feels like his brother may have said, you got to do this to move on, in a similar vein to what Usopp did to Nami and Wano. I could see that happening, but we don't really get clarification on that. We just know that at some point he lied to move on. And it looks like his name is based on a Scottish folktale, and it means the Sword of Light. Now, I think you can interpret that in a few different ways. The immediate description I'm reading is that it's a quest object in the Irish folktale of a hero seeking the one story. So it could be an indication that Clover is the hero seeking the story of the Void Century. So he is the Sword of Light that we need to reach the Void Century. Which, I mean, essentially is the case, because I think Vegapunk started researching the Void Century after the death of Clover. So you can see that as kind of a motif we're going with here from Oda. Oh, Gabe Olg. Sorry, I'm just reading out the rest of it. But it looks like there is some lore to that name. And what I can imagine is that there's lore to whatever his brother's name might be as well. Now, Clover he's wondering why basically he's being prosecuted for having the name D. He knows that Vegapunk might have some info on that, or he can help research it. And he's like, I want to know why I'm being hunted just for having this name. So at this point, Clover hasn't uncovered really anything about the clan of D. And it's funny because Vegapunk is just like, yeah, you got that, bro. Don't die. And he just walks out. And this kind of highlights Vegapunk's personality. This is something that we've seen repeatedly through Egghead, where it's like Vegapunk moves with the stride of knowledge. He doesn't deal in morals. He doesn't deal in the idea of right and wrong. He deals in the idea of pursuing, the advancement of knowledge. So in his eyes, researching the Void Century, not only does it not advance the current technology they have, because I mean, if you don't know what the Void Century is, you don't know what's all in there, you don't know that it's like ancient technology that you could utilize, but it would also stop him from researching the times of now. Basically, if the government figures out that he's doing Void Century research, he's not even doing any research because he's going to be dead. So it's like, I'm not going to do that. I can't do the science I want to do if I'm not alive. So you got that. Keep me out of it. Eventually, the news goes back to Vegapunk that Ahura was in the receiving end of a buster call. And Vegapunk immediately laments on what happened there. And we see the transition to where he actually went to Ahura. And we saw that previously when he was there and Dragon was there and he had a conversation. But he basically said that Clover doing this kind of hurts the inspiration for others to do it. Because like, if you see someone do something and then they get killed for it, you're less likely to do it on your own. So Vegapunk's like, by you choosing death over research, you're really hurting the chances of people in the future to pick that back up, because they don't want to follow that same path. They don't want to be the ones to die next because of that. And this is also something that I noticed with how Vegapunk handled Kuma, is that Vegapunk tends to be okay with doing something or letting something happen up until the point where it becomes detrimental to him. So it's like he knew Clover was studying the Void Century. He chose not to help because of his own personal goals. He's like, I want to do this, you do that, don't bring me into it. And then Clover dies, and he's like, man, Clover, I miss you, buddy. Then he has this moment of crying and like realization is that, why did you keep going through this? And it's the same thing that happens with Kuma, because up until the point where he does the last modification on Kuma, it's like, we're advancing research here, we're learning more. The utilization of your fruit is amazing. We can use that in science all the time. And then he gets to that point and he's like, man, what am I doing? And it's like, as a person, I understand, I guess, his moral quandaries, but it feels like a lot of what happens to Vegapunk is of his own doing. Like, he's pretty much making his bed. Now he's got to lay in it each time without really accepting what those consequences could be, because all he sees is science and research. So it's like you're doing all this science and research, but at what cost? In the end, what are you losing just to get all this research done? And a few more bits of exposition from Vegapunk. Nothing really new until the end. He's basically saying that, kind of similar to the quote Doflamingo had, where the victor decides justice, and whatever isn't victory gets lost by the wayside. However, whatever gets lost can still be brought back by the embers of, people who carry on that will. For example, in Marineford, we lost Ace, we lost Whitebeard, but the fact that Luffy carries on that will means that what happened there isn't a complete loss for pirates, the Will D, this, that, and the other. And then the same here, when Vegapunk says that, we get a panel of Robin. And Robin is the one survivor of Ohara, and she's carrying that legacy on her back. So even though the Marines World Government gained a technical victory over Ohara in the research, Robin still carries that will with her, and she can essentially fight for them in the future. On a side note, we, I think, get a shot of Tequila Wolf, which is also connected to Robin. It's weird that I'm not entirely sure if it's Tequila Wolf or not. It looks like the same outfits, the same like setting. It's snowing, there's slaves, and there's this what looks to be like a jailer whipping them. It looks like Tequila Wolf. Just found it odd that would be one of the panels we get, because we still don't really know what's going on with Tequila Wolf. I feel like it just has to come into play at some point, especially if the revolutionaries went there. And the fact that they lined up Tequila Wolf and Robin in the same paneling, I feel like we're supposed to be putting some emphasis on that. We also get a shot of Zeph and Patty, which is cool. But back to Egghead, we're on Thousand Sunny and we're trying to launch, but Gandhi's basically stanced up, making sure they don't make it off. Everyone wants to go, but Lilith is like, if we even get budged a little bit, we're going to fall off projection, and basically the ship is going to crash and explode. The ship is not made to land on land from that high. So if they don't make it to the water, it's done. Sunny's over with. And it's kind of funny because so many times in the past, I've talked about how the Straw Hats kind of mistreat their ships a little bit when they use Kuda Burst, when they have it in the air anytime at all. Even with Mary, when they would have Mary, like you go up the knockup stream or whatever, the landings would be so hard on the ship. And it's like, you guys gotta do better. And at this point, Lilith is like, yeah, no, this isn't gonna work. I don't care what kind of atom wood you got. If the ship smashes into the ground, it's not gonna make it. So basically, we need a way to keep Gandhi from hitting us. And as this is happening, Atlas comes flying in out of nowhere, decks Lilith in the head, knocks her out cold. And she's not explaining anything. We kind of get the reasoning through exposition, but the Straw Hats are left really confused as to what's going on. Because Atlas just flipped out of nowhere, punched Lilith in the head and said, y'all got that. I'll take care of Gandhi. And it's pretty interesting to see how quickly the Straw Hats react, because they still don't know what's going on, but I feel like at least Nami is on the quick it up and up. Because she says, Lilith, get inside, let's go. Like, she doesn't even question what's going on anymore, as opposed to like Chopper and Usopp, who are still like, what's going on here? Why are you doing that? Nami's just like, we gotta go. Take care of this. Which I think is a really good showing of Nami's character, because that is who Nami is as a person, especially as a member of the Straw Hats. Is like, when things have to happen, she's going to be the one to say it has to happen. I know we got Zoro as our, vice commander and all, but I feel like the Zoro, Luffy, Nami trinity is what keeps the ship running. Those three in particular really kind of make up the command structure of the Straw Hats. And it's just good to see here. Atlas flies off, charges at Gandhi while Jinbei gets ready to launch off. And Jinbei is another good example of basically getting things done when you need to get done. He did the same thing at Whole Cake, where it's like, yeah, Pedro's dead, we gotta go. We can hesitate, we can cry about it. That's not gonna get us anywhere. We're gonna waste time. We just need to move when we have the time. So you gotta appreciate Jinbei for that. He does that all the time with basically all the Straw Hats. He even did it with Luffy and Impelled Down with Blackbeard. Like that's Jinbei's thing. Jinbei is like, keep your emotions out of this. We got stuff to do. So they launch off as Atlas charges at Gandhi. Gandhi cuts off Atlas's arm, and Oda loves just cutting off the left arm. Like that's just, no one can have left arms in this show. Hawkins, Kid, Shanks, Atlas, no left arm. Perospero. Perospero got his right arm blown off. But basically Atlas is acting as a bomb, not only to stop Gandhi, but to propel the ship even more. Because they don't have enough oomph to get by, but then Atlas blows up, and that kind of gives them that extra push to make sure they get out there. We also have the Iron Giant still moving around, and it has a brief conversation with Luffy about being able to meet Joy Boy again. Now, Luffy has no idea who Joy Boy is. So he's hearing on this, he's like, okay, sure, cool, you're a robot. It has no meaning to him as a person, but to Emmett, it's kind of more of a reunion of sorts. So he obviously he sees Luffy as Joy Boy, but there is no connection that this is an entirely different time or this, that, and the other. Also, the communication that they're using is the voice of all things, which is why only Luffy can hear it and no one else can. So that would lead me to believe that the robot isn't necessarily sentient, so to speak. More or less, it probably harbors the soul or will of something, and that's what Luffy's hearing as a conversation. But the Iron Giant walks up to the Gorosei, Mercury and Saturn, that are trying to, and Peter's actually there too. They're trying to stop the Straw Hats from leaving, and he gets ready to shoot them, and he does a pose which is really, really familiar. Now, looking immediately at this, the first time I saw it, I was like, that's weapons lift. That is Frankie's weapons lift that Emmett is doing towards Jupiter. And we even get a panel of Frankie and Sanji reacting, which is interesting. Sanji doesn't normally react that way, I don't think. Usually it's Frankie, Usopp, Chopper, and Luffy. Now, I think the only time Sanji really got into it was when in Punk Hazard, Frankie was being a tank and he did the super pose. But normally Sanji is neutral to that kind of stuff. So to see him kind of have the starry eyes, the excited robot was going to happen, that's interesting. That's different. But I think the gag in itself has always been the guys are always interested and the girls are not. So it could just be that Sanji's just a dude and he's interested. But nothing comes out because the robot's super old, everything's busted, so there's no actual weapons. I like this because Frankie has weapons left before he goes to Vegapunk's home. Before he reads the blueprints and upgrades himself, he's already using this type of moveset. I think that's a nice call. I would like to see that be explored more. Will it? I'm gonna doubt it, but I would love to see a comparison made of this robot and Frankie at some point. And because nothing gets shot out, Jupiter ends up basically biting down on half the robot. Emmett's able to stop it with his other arm, but he loses his arm in that left side of his body pretty much. And this gives Saturn a chance to jump on the ship while the robot's being held off and try and kill Kuma and Bonnie. I do wonder who they pose as more of a threat, because Saturn jumped on the boat and said, Kuma and Bonnie, I'm not letting you escape. But on that same boat is Sun God Nika Luffy. On that same boat is Will of D, Monkey D Luffy. And he said, nah, Kuma and Bonnie, y'all not going anywhere. So it's like, what are the priorities here? Because it feels like you would definitely want to make sure of all people, the D clan, Sun God Nika, you want to make sure he doesn't go anywhere. You know, Kuma is basically a pacifist at this point and a very low functioning one with all the damage he's taken. And then Bonnie, she's a variable. Yes, she has the ability to, you know, take a Nika-ish form, but we've seen that one, she can't hold her for long. It's not as strong. And, you know, it's very dependent on her mentality. So the biggest threat would be Luffy, but still Saturn's just like, nah, Bonnie and Kuma, y'all ain't going nowhere. But Sunny's launching over. They can see it from below now, and we're getting this final panel of Sunny making it through the sky towards the Viking ship. You've got the Gorosei looking down the Iron Giant, and the Iron Giant says, it's finally time. Can I use that thing? So there's about to be some kind of epic weapon. Honestly, it might just be a self-destruct. It might just blow himself up and keep the Gorosei from reaching the ships, which I think would be somewhat anticlimactic, but I mean, it gets the job done. I think essentially what's going to happen here is if it's going to do something that keeps all the Gorosei on Egghead, well, everyone else gets away. Something interesting in the last panel. Goldie Roger. Now, Vegapunk is talking about how Goldie Roger circumnavigated the globe, this, that, and the other, became Pirate King. We have prisoners in what I believe to be Impel Down reacting to, did he say Goldie? And initially I was like, doesn't everyone know Roger's name at this point? Because I know when Roger and Whitebeard met at that one time when they were sharing sake, Roger was like, do you know what they're calling me now? Gold Roger, but my name is Goldie Roger. But at Ace's execution, they made it a point to say that Ace was Roger's son, and that I could have sworn they said that his real name is Goldie Ace. Like, Sengoku said that, right? He broadcast that across the entire world. So if Roger's son is Goldie Ace and Roger's name is Gold Roger, I feel like you could put, you know, 2 and 2 together and make 4, right? Right? Goldie Roger, Goldie Ace, that makes the most sense. I'm not going to say that, you know, it should be straightforward. I think there is some, I mean, I guess one of the things is that Gold Roger's era was such a long time ago and Ace's execution only happened 2 years ago. So it's like, that's probably not the first thing you think of. You know, you don't think that Roger was a D at Ace's execution because so much is going on. You have Whitebeard, you have Ace, you have Luffy, you have all the admirals, you have so much going on at Marine for the idea that Roger's son is named Goldie Ace doesn't really, you know, it doesn't really create a thought pattern. Obviously, and then with Blackbeard, everything else going on, the world kind of changed in rapid fire motion where the past becomes a little bit irrelevant. And I could be wrong. It's very possible that I could have sworn that Sengoku said the full name Goldie Ace. Like his name is Goldie Ace. But I would have to go back and look at that. I don't remember the exact specifics on that. I'm a little rusty. I haven't done my yearly One Piece reread. But that wraps up the chapter. Like I said, this chapter felt a lot better than the last one. I think we're still getting the Vegapunk teasers, which is, I mean, it is tiring at this point. I would love to get some definitive information. I think that's the issue with how Vegapunk's been talking this whole time, is that nothing is definitive. You know, he keeps saying that this isn't 100%, you know, this isn't completely factual. And not only does he saying that, but he's not saying anything directly. The only direct thing he said was the stuff with the Will of D, which of course we did not get. So it's like, okay, you're giving us all this information about, D clan. I mean, we also have this stuff about the water level rising, but I think that was a secondary reveal. Obviously, the Will of D stuff, I think, is a bit more important to us as readers and to the story as a whole. And that's stuff we're not getting. We keep skating around it. I just want something definitive. It doesn't have to be the complete reveal. It doesn't have to be all the information at once, but I want something definitive. At this point, we really haven't learned anything new about the Will of D, the clan, the structure, what it means, the people who have it. We haven't learned anything. And I think that's the thing that kind of bites these chapters a little bit, is that, reading through it, you get to the end and it's like, well, I didn't really learn anything. The visuals are cool. I liked some of the things that happened in the chapter, but I didn't really learn anything. And that's where a lot of people are having a problem with Egghead as an arc, is that at this point, we've been listening to Vegapunk talk for chapters upon chapters, and we haven't gotten anywhere. And it feels like we've been in this pace of we have to get off Egghead while Vegapunk's talking for a long time. But why? It feels like you could have condensed this. It feels like, you could have maybe skipped some things, or at least, in my opinion, all of this exposition, all the chapters of us trying to get away from Egghead, all this stuff would have been fine if we got actual definitive information. If Vegapunk was dropping gems every chapter, and not even every chapter, maybe like every other chapter, every 2 chapters, if Vegapunk was dropping more gems, this would all be fine. But the fact that, we're kind of just in this loop of escaping and we're not getting anything from it, it feels like whole cake, where we're like, all right, wedding cake, we gotta leave. Wedding cake, we gotta leave. This, that, and the other. Buy time. And it can get tiring. I'm not like super upset about it because, I've been reading One Piece for a long time. So I kind of take it in stride. When it's hype, it's hype. When it's, chill, it's chill. When it's average, it is what it is. Doesn't really bother me all that much. I like the chapter. I always have fun reading the chapters, so it's not like this chapter is any different where I'm like, man, I'm tired of this. I want more. One Piece Day is coming up, which I think is the 27th anniversary of the manga. 27 years. I just want some answers. I don't think that's too much to ask for. But we're not on break, so we're going to be getting a chapter next week, and we're, I believe, getting the cover and color spread. So we're doing a big thing next week. I'm wondering if we're going to get a big reveal, because what happens at the end of this chapter is that we're basically building to like I've been saying, we're leaving Egghead. Egghead's pretty much over. I think the next chapter or the chapter after, we will officially be out of Egghead. Because whatever is going to happen with the Iron Giant here is going to let us escape. We'll be in the water sailing away next chapter. So we might get like some residuals of Egghead in a chapter after that, but we're definitely going to be sailing away in next chapter. Like, this is the wrap up here. So as always, I'm excited to see, what goes on there. I really hope Oda brings it home strong with the end of this arc. Like, I think we had a good start. We had a good middle. Kuma's backstory was in here, which was fantastic. If we can wrap up this arc with a huge reveal, I think it will make what's happened here worth it. And I don't doubt that Oda can do that. I think that's well within his ability. He's done amazing things like that before. I don't see why he wouldn't do it now. And with how big Egghead is, I think that is a possibility. We just gotta wait and see. Also, something I didn't really talk about. So back when Atlas punched Lilith in the head, it severed the communications to Punk Records, and basically this gave York the idea that Lilith was offline, disconnected, busted. So when Atlas goes offline, York is like, yep, I'm the last Vegapunk. Now when Lilith wakes up, I'm assuming she's still going to have access to punk records. What I could see happening is that they do something to York where she either can't tell what's happening with punk records, or basically she's just a functional robot. They may strip away her personality and just make her into a strictly information giving robot, so that when Lilith wakes up and reconnects to punk records, York can't say anything about it. The other case is that Lilith wakes up, York realizes that Lilith is still connected, but they can't really do anything about it because Lilith is off the island. They would essentially have to hunt down the Straw Hats at every angle to try and kill Lilith, which, as we've seen, as they try to hunt down Robin, as they try to get rid of Luffy, that never works. They would need exuberant time and resources to take care of that. But I think this also means Lilith is joining the crew, or at the very least, she is going to be with us until Elbaf. She might not stay with us the entire time, but we're going to have her for a little bit. I think that's going to be awesome. But that's going to do it for me today. I talked a lot about this chapter, surprisingly more than I thought I was going to, but it has been break week. We just got back. So, this chapter was definitely full of information despite us still not getting anything definite. And I mean, that's what Oda's been doing this whole time. He's packing these chapters with stuff without giving us answers, which is, it's crazy work. It's wild. I'm not gonna lie to you, but I mean, still enjoyable. Let me know what you guys thought. Like, comment, subscribe, smash the like button. I'll catch you in the next one. Happy season 3. Peace.